DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin with DreAllDay.com. Let's talk about diversity. This is a phrase that is actually, maybe you might hear a lot of people talking about it now, it might be newer to you, but it's not actually a new thing, especially in like corporate world and associations, a lot of the business world. This phrase DEI, or some people call it DIE, D-I-E, depending on how you put the acronym, diversity, inclusion, and equity, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a phrase that's been out for a long time. It's been a buzz phrase a long time in the business world, simply because, again, this is also not a new thing. You've had people saying, well, hey, there aren't enough blank people in whatever group or organization or association. So somebody might say, well, there are not enough women who are speaking at this conference, or not enough black people working at this company, or there are not enough, now LGBTQ is flexing their muscles. There's not enough LGBT people who are being represented in this situation, whatever the thing is that people are talking about. And here's the thing about diversity, equity, inclusion. It appears from the outside looking in, because I don't work in any company that is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I was just saying it appears this way. And you can tell me what you think. Those of you who might have more and different experiences from what I have. It appears that the only way that anyone's really focusing on this is when it comes to identity, such as male versus female, LGBTQ, what race, nationality, color you are. Everyone wants to diversify and make sure there's equity, whatever that means, and inclusion just based on people's identities. But I think when it comes to diversity, I think there's a much more important diversity that we need now, and I think it's become very clear over the last couple of years, is that we need diversity of ideas, opinions, and information more than we need diversity of color and diversity of nationality, diversity of sexual orientation or gender. I think it's more important that we figure out how do we get people with different opinions and different ideas and different approaches in the same organization. Because nowadays, let's say an organization says, all right, well, we got to have more black people in an organization. Well, look, you might have 90% black people in an organization, but if all of those people, and let's not even say 90% black people, let's say you take all the black people you got in the organization, right? And then you got a bunch of white people as well. And let's say you're hitting your number, you're hitting your affirmative action number, you're hitting your DIE numbers when it comes to diversity of color. But what if all the people who work there, black and white, all mixed in together, they all have the same opinions, the same approaches, they all get their information from the same sources? Do you really have a diverse organization? I would say you don't, because everybody's thinking the exact same way. The only difference between them is their colors. But if everybody has the same ideas and the same approaches and they're all getting their info from the same sources, how much diversity do you really have? You don't really have any. What you have is what we call, the word is escaping me right now, but it's basically a demonstration of diversity, but it's not real diversity. It's basically your acting. It's like an acting type of diversity. It's a play type of diversity. Like, hey, everybody, look at all these different colors we got, but everybody has the exact same opinions. It'd be better if you had a whole bunch of, you could have all white people working in an organization, right? But if half of the white people think this way and the other half think completely differently, so now they're going to clash because they have different opinions and different approaches and different ideas, that is more diverse than if you had half black people and half white people. Because if you have half black people, half white people with all the same ideas, they're going to produce the same results. Again, the only difference is a surface thing, which is their color. But if the ideas are different and the thoughts are different and the approaches are different, that produces a lot more diversity, even if the colors are very homogenous, even if it's all women or it's all men or it's all gay people or it's all transsexual people. If their ideas and their thinking process is different, then the skin color difference isn't as important, because we're going to get diversity of results because we got a bunch of people with different approaches coming in. So I think this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing, for the most part, I mean, actually, this is not even really a breakthrough idea, what I'm about to share with you here. This whole thing started because you had a whole lot of companies that were run by white people that were afraid of being labeled as racist or labeled as not diverse enough. So they adopted these affirmative action policies, which is you need to have X amount of, usually it was black people, or what nowadays is POC, people of color, or now they might even change it to people from marginalized groups. You need to have a certain amount of these people in your organization, or you might not get funding, or you're going to be looked at as racist, or there's something wrong with your organization. So all these companies scrambled to save their asses, cover their asses, and what did they do? They said, all right, well, we got to make sure we bring in enough people who look a certain way, or they identify as a certain way. It was all surface-based stuff. Like, all right, my color is black, so now you're hitting the quota, or I'm gay, so you're hitting the quota, or you're a female, so you're hitting the quota. But I think what's much more important, and you can tell me what you think, I think what's much more important about a person is not the color of their skin or the gender that they identify with, or what they do in the bedroom, who they're attracted to, male or female, or they're non-binary, whatever the phrase is people are using. I think the much more important thing is how a person thinks. Because I don't care if you got a whole mix of male, female, black, white, gay, straight, bisexual, transsexual, all in organizations, a melting pot of surface level traits. But if all of those people have the same thought process, the same ideas, the same opinions, get their info from the same sources, there's no diversity in that organization. Even if they all look different, that's not diversity. Real diversity, you can have everyone with the same damn color, but they have different approaches, different ideas, different ways of looking at things, different ways of solving problems. That's real diversity. And that's the kind of diversity we actually need out here. The problem is, and this is going to continue to be a problem probably for the foreseeable future, that is never going to be, let me not say never, let me back that up. That is not going to be the way that anybody looks at diversity, equity, and inclusion, simply because this surface level thing that a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, a lot of organizations have adopted, this has been enough to check the box for them, and it covers their asses, and that's good enough. All right, a lot of times when people create these initiatives to balance things out or make things quote unquote fair, with life not being fair, but they're trying to manufacture fairness, usually it's just to cover their asses and get the heat off of them. That's usually all they're trying to do. Let me just get the heat off me. Let me just cover my ass so nobody can say that I'm not doing this thing or I'm not doing that thing. But it's not about getting any kind of real tangible result out of it. It's just to get them off of the hot seat. So I want y'all to understand, when you hear people using this phrase DEI or DIE, that it's not about getting any real diversity. Diversity of thinking. Thinking is more important than surface traits. Because you get a whole room full of white people, or a room full of black people, gay people, women, whatever they identify themselves, they can all be exactly the same on the surface. But if their thoughts are different, you're going to get a diverse set of results. But if you get a bunch of people who all look different and they're different on the surface, but they all have the same approach, then you're going to get a bunch of homogenous results, even though they all look different. So is it really producing the result? Of course it's not. But again, you bring this to someone who's pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion, it might be tied to, look, their paycheck might be tied to it, their career might be tied to it, the funding they get from the government might be tied to it. They don't want to hear that, because it requires extra work. It requires extra effort. It requires extra thinking. It requires them going a level deeper than the surface. And a lot of times, frankly, people are just not interested in that. But it is a thing that exists. So this is something that I just want y'all to think about next time you hear people throwing around this phrase and parading it as if they're doing something, when a lot of times they're actually not. But all that said, you want to get my daily motivation text free of charge every day straight to your phone, text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. You get the daily motivation every day free of charge. And what's the other thing? Oh yeah, join my university. You ready to go to the next level? Work with me directly, whether in my group programs, one-on-one programs. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. See all the options. See how you can get started working with me on a level that is a lot higher than just watching me on YouTube. Keep watching me on YouTube, but you ready to go to the next level, go to Work on Your Game University. Work on your game. Dre, all